so abrupt. Just like just like cut off like that. No fade or what. I don't know. The video must be glitchy or something. It's been one of those weeks, hasn't it, Rachel? Just been kind of a
A little
weird
bit,
week.
yeah. But I kind of have some peace and quiet because my daughter's in Washington, D.C. all week. But you're the video
Ah,
expert, so you're going to have to figure that out.
I know. I'll have to look at it again. Uh, we'll take a look at see behind the scenes there. But welcome to another Workshop Wednesday brought to you by schoolbookkeeping.com, where it's casual conversations for serious workflows. And this week, we're going to be talking about Square and PayPal. But before
Yes.
we get into that, the fact that you said yes is just that's just mind-boggling that you actually like this stuff. But we'll
I
talk
do.
about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But oops, hold on a second. I clicked the wrong button. Hide. That's what I want. Um, we talked last week about the new invoice experience, and we talked about some of the things that you can't do. And between last week and this week, Intuit has made a change to to actually some of the things that you can't do. Right. So we said yes last time that you couldn't do price levels and some of the things that are on the blog. The
And you had a
good
workaround.
Yeah, and we had to work around for the price levels, which Hector Garcia said was amazing, which was a
Oh,
pretty
yeah, he
cool
did. That's right. Thank you,
pretty
Hector.
cool kudos from coming from Hector. But the one of the other unfunctioning things. I can't. I'm at a loss for words of what actually to call it because when it was a feature that was working and now isn't working because of
Yeah.
a change that was made. Um, the inability to copy an estimate to a purchase order was a bit of was not there, right? So as of yesterday or today, I'm not sure when that functionality is back. But not
Oh,
where you would
nice.
but not where you would expect it.
Oh,
So I
boy.
wanted to so I wanted to share and give people an update on that. I think I have. I don't know if I'm in. Well, let me just go back to my test company that I know is in the new invoice estimate view. So if you're in an estimate, let's go into an estimate. Um, then I could show the old one if you really wanted to see it, right? So let's go into a historical one, and it's down here now. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I think wasn't it like at the top and it was like
yeah,
pretty clear
yeah,
you
it was
could
a
convert. Yeah,
yeah. In the old layout, it was up at the top. You could hit
that's right.
convert to in. You convert to invoice, and then there was a drop down to choose convert to purchase order. But
Right.
and here, no, hold on a second. Oh, when I make it when I accept it, it gives this convert to invoice up
Mm,
here, but not the convert to invoice or convert to purchase order. But once it is accepted, then you have this convert to invoice link here, and I'm not. There we go. I'm trying to zoom in so that so that you could see where I'm pointing to because my mouse is tiny unless I shake it like a leaf. Um, but the copy to purchase order is way down here, right? So it's in this. I don't know what they're calling it because it's the green button for the
yeah.
invoices and estimates, and it used to be the save menu, right? Where
Yeah.
you had save and new, save and
Yeah.
send, save and
Save and exit.
close,
Save
save,
and close. Yeah, save and close.
right? But now they have this save menu, right? So that's where your save and new, save and close is, and then just a general save button. But this other button is where the convert to invoice and copy to purchase order, share link, and review and send is located. So kudos to Intuit for putting the functionality back that they removed by
Yeah.
this whole process. But shame on them for putting it in two different places.
They have
um,
their reasons. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. Maybe they think
Probably,
it's
probably
clearer
the
to
yeah, probably the
separate.
guy that or the guy that owns this area said no, you can't. Or he's
Yeah.
off this week.
Yeah. He was on
Maybe the
vacation.
project manager is off and they couldn't get the approval, and so they're like, okay, we got to put it back in here, so we got to put it somewhere. Hey, this button down here is available.
Yeah.
So um, so that's how you can now copy to a purchase order. Hooray for adding that back. But we want to make sure that you're aware that it's available and where it is, right? So that's
Yeah,
why.
and I
Mhm.
do have to say, I don't do a lot of these just because I really don't work in field services at all where estimates are needed but convert to invoice. But guess what? I am redoing my kitchen right now and I'm dealing with a
Mhm.
lot of these contractors and I'm noticing like how they're sending estimates and how they're sending payment links and how they're sending stuff. And I just want to tell them, why can't you streamline this into QuickBooks Online? And they really just don't know. But one of the guys I actually let him know, like, here's the workflow in QuickBooks Online, and you should be doing it this way. And he actually said he'd like
Mhm.
to switch. But man, is it so much easier for as a business owner to do it like this? It's really, really helpful.
Yeah, if they have the workflow end to end, and there's not like a glaring problem, with their workflows, that's great, right? Like because
Yeah.
and that's the great thing about doing these workflows in your QuickBooks is that your billing and your
Yes.
bookkeeping's done at the same time,
Yes.
or your expenses and your bookkeeping, right? Like you're receiving inventory management. Oh, okay, everything else is
Yep.
coming along for
And
the ride. So
And PS, everything is just saved in the customer record, which is nice.
yeah, exactly. So you've got that
Yeah.
history. All right. So now let's move on to our topic of the day: Square and PayPal, and why you like this stuff.
Mhm.
Was that the PayPal? Was it the PayPal that made you say yes, or was it the Square that made you say yes, or is it both?
It's both. I mean, I really like PayPal, but and Square is okay. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge, but
Mhm.
there's usually always a way to work it out. But I really like puzzles. I'm one of those people where I'll just do a puzzle for fun, and so I really like figuring things out. And um I when I first started doing this, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so confusing and I don't know if I'll ever understand it. But then it's just trying and undoing, trying and undoing, trying and undoing. It really helped me figure out, I feel like, to the point of perfection now at this point. um, but I love customization. I love something that's not just stock. You know what I mean? I like integrating other things into QuickBooks Online. I think the power of QuickBooks Online is incredible. And I know that a lot of maybe like old timey folks that are really, really only want to work in desktop, I'm the total opposite. Even though I did work in desktop in the past, I love the connectivity of QuickBooks Online and the fact that you can customize so many different things and make it your own and accept payments from all over the place. And I just love that ability. So, it's from one thing that I really like to help the business owners that I work with is get that money. And, there's a lot of different ways to get that money. And
Mhm.
so when you're using these payment processors, you want to make sure that you're doing it correctly because maybe we can get into it, but
Yeah,
there's risk of some very common problems. But
right.
when you're doing it correctly, it's really, really powerful.
So I guess let's take a 50,000 foot level bird's eye view of the puzzle, right? So
Hmm.
we'll use that analogy. We'll find our outside pieces because that's what we're that's what we're needing to solve this puzzle first. why is PayPal and Square so hard? Like, why is it, as you were trying to put this puzzle together, why is it different than other things that tend to pull customers in that direction? I would
Yeah.
call this like a payment shiny ball. Like, oh, I could get money over here,
Hmm.
or I could get money this way. So that the shiny balls that distract business owners, and to add these things, why is it so challenging for
Well,
accountants and bookkeepers? I guess.
yeah, I think personally the reason why it can be challenging is when you're putting more things into the mix, sometimes that's a problem. Too many
Mhm.
things. And so QuickBooks Online, let's just say you're invoicing out of QuickBooks Online. It's very, very simple. That's how you're posting your revenue. That's it. Then let's say you're using QuickBooks Payments. When the payment comes through, it'll match what it needs to in the bank feed and you're done. When you're, let's say you're maybe a business owner and you're selling on some kind of external sales platform, or you're using other kinds of, I promise you, I am saying high level. When you're let's say you're selling elsewhere outside of QuickBooks Online, meaning you're selling
Yeah.
something in which you're not sending an invoice. And as we know, there's all kinds of different scenarios where you could be selling out and about elsewhere, either on e-commerce platforms or at a farmer's market, or whatever. Um and so why we want to use these additional payment methods is because it's flexible, right? So let's say you can collect a payment from Square if you're somewhere and you're using a Square reader, or you are sending somebody a payment link and you can send them a PayPal payment link. It's just a lot of added ways to collect payments. Well, guess what? You typically always have your business checking account connected to either PayPal or Square or Stripe or any other payment method. Typically, it's part of the requirement of signing up for a payment gateway is that we have a connected business checking account. So that way, when you actually do collect that money from your customer, it then moves over to your checking account so you can get the money. And guess what? Is that a sale or is that a payout? So that sometimes can be very, very confusing. So one of the things that it can cause oftentimes confusion is if bookkeepers or accountants are seeing those payouts coming through the bank feed, they'll say, "Oh, that's the sale." Doink, and they'll code it or they'll add it
That's actually the
as a
sound it makes.
sale.
Doink.
They'll add it as a sales receipt. And if they're already posting their sale some other way using Bookkeep or some other way to bring their revenue into QuickBooks Online, when they're seeing those payouts come through the bank feed, and then they're adding that as a sales receipt. And believe it or not, I know a lot of people do that because I have a ton of people always asking me about that. So you're duplicating your revenue. So I would say the biggest
That's
challenge
a
is when,
wag. That's a wag of the
yes,
finger.
don't do that. So when you're using and even just somebody yesterday I was talking said, "Oh, no, 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 I'm already taking care of posting the revenue because I have Stripe and PayPal coming through the bank feeds." And I was like, "Wait, is that revenue or is that just your payout?" Because Dan, let
Mhm.
me ask you, what is your payout the exact amount that you've earned?
No, because because your
Why?
payout's going to be less their fees, which is
Yes.
part of the biggest challenge. And I think another thing, especially with PayPal, of making it more challenging, is you can have multiple bank accounts tied to your payout,
Yes.
or tied to your PayPal account, and you can also use your PayPal to pay for things, right? So
Yes.
it's not just as simple as it's a payment processor. It would be
Yeah,
lovely if that's the only thing that it did.
man. Now you're speaking my language, because that's the thing is there are times
It's getting
when,
on the edge of her seat.
yeah, there are times where, do I want to connect PayPal as, Jeff? Yeah, there are times where it's like, do you want to connect PayPal to the bank feeds? And there's other times where you may not need to. So if your customer is only using PayPal as a means to collect payments, you might not even need to collect it to the bank feed, because you could use a connector to post those transfers that are literally moving from checking account to from PayPal to the checking account and then paying you out. You could grab that activity from some kind of connector. But guess what happens if that client has that one PayPal account connected to multiple checking accounts? Then you have that movement all over the place. It makes it infinitely more difficult. And then you also, if they're purchasing with PayPal, I have actually gotten to the point where I ask them, look, if you are
That's where you
using
put the gun in the
PayPal,
mouth.
what?
That's where you put the gun in your mouth. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, forget
I now know if they are using PayPal for making business purchases, transferring from PayPal to a checking account, that's always going to happen, and collecting revenue. I always connect it in the bank feed. Why? Because you do need to be able to grab the money out, right? And I know now, how to match everything so we're not duplicating. So there are times where I actually really, really do like to connect PayPal. And then if you do connect PayPal to a bank feed, then you have to reconcile PayPal as you would a bank account. But if you've got sales posting from some connector platform like Cinder or Bookkeep, or even the built-in one from
or
QuickBooks,
we integrate, or we
yeah, or
integrate
we
because Mark
integrate or
because Mark
connects.
is Mark just sent me a text, so I know he's
Yeah,
watching
and
because he, he
I've
says
looked
that
into this.
doink is a professional term.
Yes. And there's another one that I've recently been looking at called Connects, which is a little bit different. It's for very, very high volume sellers. So a lot of complexity because it has a lot of customized rules. And we can talk about that another time too. But if you've got one of those posting your revenue in literally only one of three ways: a sales receipt, an invoice, or a consolidated journal entry. So that's the only way to post revenue. And so if your revenue is getting posted that way and then your payouts are coming through a different way, you really have to match those sales with the payments in some kind of clearing account. And so because when we bring in clearing accounts, oh boy, that adds a whole other level of complexity. But the clearing account is really, really important because it helps our process of proving that we're not duplicating income. So I would say the risk that comes into place when you're using another way of collecting payments from your sales is that you can duplicate income. And how bad is that? It's bad. That's bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when it comes tax time, and then
Yeah.
you're paying your taxes off of the net income that's not even real net income. It's
Yeah. Yeah. So it can be like, it can really, really screw up your books. And
mhm,
one of the things that, we do at month end is we reconcile these clearing accounts. It's basically reconciling sale to payout, sale to payout, sale to payout. And if you're doing your books real time, then you have those syncing and posting every single day. And that's one of the
yeah,
benefits of using those connectors. And so I don't want to get too much in the weeds of how a connector can actually post PayPal and actually
yeah,
post the sales from Square. I'm just going to kind of limit it to, you're using those payment methods to collect payments. And so that's really where, like, sort of the entry level, and it's where a lot of people can really get tripped up.
yeah. So I wanted to just, again, we wanted to keep it pretty fundamental here, and we can but this is PayPal is a gateway drug, right? It leads
Yes.
down that rabbit hole of holy moly, this is crazy. But yeah, I mean, I'm reminded of a client who came to me. He was a coffee roaster, and his whole thing was that his accountant said, "I don't think your revenue's right." And he was a coffee roaster, so he went to farmers markets and he used Square. He sold
Hmm.
bags of on Shopify, and then he also sold to Whole Foods, local Whole Foods in the area. So those were his three main revenue sources. And because he was just limit, doing things on the bank feed and um, creating invoices, he had duplicated his revenue by several tens of thousands of dollars. And so after we had cleaned it up, I was like, well, now you don't have to pay that much taxes. And like,
Yeah.
thank you very much. So he turns out, we caught it before the tax return was necessary. So he was very appreciative that he did not have to pay taxes on the duplicated revenue. But
Yeah, because then trying to get a refund, I mean, oh my goodness. So
yeah,
it's better to
yeah,
just do it accurately.
I'm I'm in amended return hell.
Oh
So
my goodness. Yeah. And I mean,
try
and
can't check
honestly,
on can't check on the status of my amended return. I tried to call. It was an hour and a half, and I had to hang up because we're doing the workshop. So
yeah,
I get
it's
to go
just you
back in
don't
the
want that. You just want
yeah.
it done correct right out the gate. And one of the other things that I was going to say is it's really it it really depends on who what the business is, right? Oh
Yeah.
man, like don't we hate saying that, but it really does because let's say you're a wholesale we really mainly deal with inventory folks, but let's say you're a wholesaler and you're sending out invoices, the occasional invoice, you're not like you've got, you're selling online and you've got a million little sales coming in every single day. If you're sending out wholesaling invoices, you can maybe put a PayPal link on there, which now that as you demoed that you can now embed that into your invoice and embed your PayPal account in there. And then so your invoice will post to revenue, and then the payment will come through the bank feed and then match up with that, which is really, really nice. But that's not a ton of PayPal payouts coming in, right? The complexity really comes in if you're selling here and here and here and here, like you just mentioned. It can cause a lot of confusion. So to be able as an accountant or a bookkeeper to really have a grasp on not even in the weeds but the fundamentals. So when if you come across somebody that needs some kind of cleanup, man, you really have those skills and you can go back and fix a lot of stuff. And a lot of people that don't really know what they're doing with this and they're posting what's coming through the bank feeds just straight to revenue, um that's that you're going to need to clean up. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And so you almost like now get into the realm of oh, okay, potential new customer, like I'd love to help you and do your books going forward, but I'm looking at this and you didn't necessarily ask me for a cleanup, but I can see everything that was posted from the beginning of the year was duplicated or even tripled, you know what I mean? So,
Triplicated.
so yeah, triplicated. So to be able to look at that quickly, and we have now our step by step, know sort of what to look at. We'll usually go straight to the P&L and see like stuff was added like that from the bank feeds.
Right.
And you can quickly diagnose and see. And when you explain to them, well, here's why you want this fixed so you don't pay extra taxes, they're usually like, oh, it for me, I find that it creates more value with that connection with them instead of
Right.
here I am just, keying in your data. No, I'm actually looking to see if this is done right. And it's really important to know that because with these things, you have all this added complexity.
Right. But the simple question, right? Like, somebody will come to you and say, and I've seen, multiple Facebook posts about this sort of thing. Is like, how do I get my PayPal or Square data into QuickBooks? Um, Beware, right? Because there's a variety. You need to understand how they're using these things and what they're ultimately looking to do inside of QuickBooks. So, I wanted to show. So I've got a guy here that's got a PayPal. He's actually using it he's one of those folks that's paying things out of his PayPal as well as receiving it as a payment method on both Amazon and Shopify, right? So um, it could come in from multiple places, but when you have uh, in just in general, right? Like when you want to connect your PayPal to QuickBooks, there used to be two methods to do that, and you could set it up as a bank feed, or you could use the Connect with PayPal app. And I don't think anymore you can connect. You can set it up as a bank feed now. In which case, the difference is that it would separate every transaction type. If it was if they received funds, right? Like they received a payment of $100, the expense that would be associated with that, the transaction fee would occur as two separate
That's still
line
there.
items or events, right?
Yeah, that's
But
still there
here,
though.
okay, but when you use the Connect with PayPal app, you have these options here, which it will ask, well, what's the bank account that it will go to, the QuickBooks account you're mapping to. If there is an expense, what get out of the way. Uh, what fees, what expense account fees you want those to go to, and then for sales forms, what income accounts. Now this is where it gets wonky. That's the technical term. We
Yeah.
don't want we don't if you need to know more about the payment method. Is this something that's attached outside? Are they sending invoices through QuickBooks and then receiving it through PayPal? Or what are the workflows that you're actually solving for? Because
Yeah,
if
because
they're
this can be the start of epic confusion.
yeah, because if you're creating an invoice in QuickBooks and you're telling this app, okay, well, anything that will come in, please put it to PayPal sales, and then PayPal shipping and discounts and those types of things, because PayPal likens itself. This thing just keeps going around here. There we go. Get away. Got to hit the X. Because PayPal likens itself as like an invoicing thing, right? So you
Yeah.
can create invoices in PayPal, and
And Square.
I itemize them out. Yes, we'll get to Square, and and you can do those things there, and then if that's the only thing that you're doing, in PayPal, and you're keeping that completely separate from any invoicing or sales transactions in QuickBooks, this is okay.
Yep.
Because what happens is that the transaction comes in, and here's one that is 100. That is the net of
Hmm.
$185.37, which it then, when you hover over it, if I can see, there we go. So there's the gross sales, and then the PayPal fee, giving us the net amount of 187, right? So if I were to add this transaction, right now it's wanting to match because I've done my due diligence and I've sent the transaction, sent a sales transaction for it to match from wherever this came from.
Yeah,
But if I were
so
to,
I would say what it looks like is either a sales receipt was created in QuickBooks or the sales receipt was brought over from somewhere else. And the sales receipt was 192.58. But
Mhm.
this PayPal Connect to PayPal connection is smart enough to recognize that it's 192.58 gross less the fee is the net, and it'll
Right.
find the match, which is great.
Right. So when I click on match, didn't explode. That's good. Go away.
Oh, Jeff was saying, let's
The
see the sales receipt, but I don't know that it
yeah.
matters. It's just
Well,
there from
I'm going.
however way
I
it
was
got
getting
there.
there. I was
Oh,
gonna
okay.
show him. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. So it says it's matched to multiple transactions because it does that. It does the expense of the fee, and in this case, it was the deposit, not the sales receipt,
Yeah.
because this actually came through. Uh, yeah, there it is. So there's the sales receipt here for 192.57 or 54, and then this is actually the sales receipt that's posted through We Integrate. Shout out to Mark,
Ooh,
right?
cool.
So he's actually able to. We're actually able to match this to a non-Shopify payment method by doing it this way. So there's the sale that came in, and then the total here, because this is the grand total, not the revenue, because the revenue is 199 plus the shipping, right? That was on there. So uh, totally way off, right? Because it was 192. Um,
Hmm.
even on top of that, and so that's another layer of this particular transaction, is that even though the payout from PayPal was 182,
Hmm.
or whatever that was, with their fees taken out, the actual revenue of the sale is $207, right? So even if we didn't have this detail to back that up, we would actually be um, under posting our revenue, because
Yep.
the shipping and the discount and all that other stuff that's here is not recognized as part of that PayPal
Right.
transaction that came in.
So it's you've essentially you have your gross sale, 207.58, less
Hmm.
discount, plus tax, plus shipping. Oh, I don't see.
Hmm.
Sorry, my eyes can't see. Um, and your
Shipping's up
net.
here. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So your net sale is 192.58, and that's what PayPal is matching to. And like I said, oh no, like you said,
Like
it's
someone said.
matching it based on the 192.58, and because you mapped the PayPal fee to PayPal fees, it grabbed that and allocated it into a second transaction line. So as long as you've got these sales receipts coming in, that
Hmm.
PayPal, it'll find that match in the bank feed. And it's really,
Right.
I love that. I love setting up things for a match.
Yes, it's like a dating game. We want the we want to find
Yeah.
a match. We're
Now,
the
if
Chuck
it's not
Woolery
gonna find a
of
match,
applications.
yeah, now if it doesn't find a match for whatever reason, this could confuse the person that's managing the bank feeds, and they may
Hmm.
add not match. And another thing is what I look at oftentimes when I'm diagnosing is, you can probably agree, is that on the P&L, if you're seeing a line of PayPal sales, what's that telling you? It's probably that they're adding, adding, adding,
Yeah.
adding, and they're probably duplicating. So usually like a big red flag
Yeah.
for me is if I see PayPal sales
Yeah.
rather than, Shopify sales or sales of product income or any of the other typical ones that you may break them up by. That PayPal sales usually will tell me, uh-oh.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you can be creative and actually create another income account called "This is going to cost you," and
Yeah,
map your
smart.
map, map your PayPal sales to that. And that way, when you see that on there, they would be more apt to not do that.
Yeah, and so I usually like to say, when your PayPal is connected as a bank feed, most people are posting the sales receipts or invoices some other way. And I usually always say, just make sure you're matching, not adding. And that's, I mean, it really is as simple as it gets.
All right. Now, we've been having all this attention to PayPal, and we haven't even talked about Square. Square is a little bit more convoluted because they venture into the point of sale
Yeah.
realm. There's you see, you know, tons of coffee shops. I mean, this coffee roaster that I was working with at the farmers market. I would go visit him, and going up and down the farmers market, everyone's got Square there at the farmers market. It's
Yeah.
it's very embedded into the small business payment collection industry, right?
Yes.
And they have a really cool little terminal that food trucks and smaller restaurants can opt into, and those types of things. And there is with Square inside of QuickBooks, there is a Connect with Square or Square Connector. I don't know what it's called today, but there is an
I
app
don't know.
that you
I
can
usually
connect.
just call it the one in app transactions.
Right, because it'll show up in app transactions, and this will have a little bit more detail of
Yeah.
where of what you can link and synchronize it to, right? So just like um, with PayPal, you can tell it what bank account things get deposited to, and whether or not you want individual transactions or summary. If you're going to do item tracking, you have, well, how's it going to find the item? Is it going to find it by
Yep.
the item name or don't? That's not much of an
Yeah.
option.
Well, I mean,
Don't
and if
track.
you're managing inventory in QuickBooks, you
Right,
have to match the items. So, because
right,
you want your sales receipt that's going to
right.
come in itemized and
And this
decrease your levels.
this this particular this particular company, they do little pop-up events, but they want to track inventory, and they're using Square to do that. Um, and the challenge is that the item name, or they've set up SKUs because it's a clothing, right? So
Hmm.
makes sense to create a different variation, and this gets a little trickier to track inside of QuickBooks because there is no such thing as a variant of one item, right? So you have a shirt, and then it comes in different colors, and it comes in different style, or not necessarily style, but sizes. So you have color,
Hmm.
you have these variations which will have a unique SKU, but they've set these items up with an item name. They call it, black shirt, whatever, and then they have a SKU number. Well, in QuickBooks, they set it up as the name is the SKU, right? So it
Yeah.
doesn't there's not a one-to-one relationship, and this is part of the challenge when they're trying to do item tracking here is by the item name. It doesn't
Yeah, that's
exist that
super
way.
annoying, by the way. I would only want to match by SKU. I mean, that's
Yeah,
why you have a SKU.
right. But there is no way that you can tell it to look at the
Yeah.
SKU. You got to look at the name, and now that means changing the item names to match the SKU, which
Yeah,
is
and now you got to make sure
that's
that
a
all your item names in QuickBooks are exactly as they are in Square.
exactly. Until there is such a thing as a variant
Yeah,
inside of
which
inside of
I don't
QuickBooks.
know if QuickBooks Inventory is going to do that. I
Supposedly,
don't know.
it's
Maybe.
supposed to be on the horizon, but
Hmm.
they're still
Okay.
work they're still working on copying estimates to purchase orders.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's
they got they got
we'll
bigger they
wait.
got bigger problems
We'll wait a
than
long
variants.
time for that one. That is
Right.
that is something that's done so well
Hmm.
elsewhere that unless that's done to perfection in QuickBooks Online, I wouldn't hold my breath.
Right. But there's a lot more functionality or mapping settings with the Connect with Square app. But if you look and see at, let's see here, is there any recent one? Okay, yeah. So here is a couple card transactions for a pop-up event that they did. Um, and then here is the actual items that were actually sold, right? So it actually does map to, the
Yeah. It's very
items,
cool.
right? So this is what came in from Square. So all I have to do is, and it tracks the fees here. So this is what was sold, and then the fees, and then this will be the deposit that comes in. So you have the option to view the transactions, see the details as they came in. Not something that you can do in the PayPal app, by the way.
No.
So this
And
is
I
this is
will
different.
say that now this, and I find, like you very nicely explained, is that because people are using Square POS as their source of sale, that with Square, well, at least with my customers, it is so much more necessary to post that sales receipt here in this space with the app transaction Square connection.
Hmm.
Because in this situation, it's not coming from somewhere else and I'm just mapping up the payment. It can. And in that situation here, you'll see that match and you can just go ahead and match it. But more often than not, we are needing to actually post the sales receipt at the item level with this ad. And so this would be a time where, yes, ad.
Yes, please do, because chances are you didn't enter in the invoice or the sale in some case in some manner, um, but you want to do this before your bank feed comes in, right?
Yes.
So you would be adding this. So let's just when was this? This was April. Okay, so this should have been done a while ago. Who's their treasurer? Oh, it's me. Uh,
Now,
um,
Dan.
this is a nonprofit that we're working. Let's see here. So where is the sale? So I added this. I added the sale, and lo and behold, there it now matches. If I were to remove that, this would just show up as a deposit to sales revenue. Let's actually do that now. While I'm undoing that,
Yeah,
what were you
please do
saying?
that because that's another thing is very much like PayPal. Oftentimes I'll look at the P&L and I'm seeing Square sales, and I'm like,
Hmm.
"Uh-oh, same deal."
Yeah,
And or they'll even create an account if, they don't see one and they'll call it, sales from Square. And so it is really, really important that if you are adding them in this app transaction for Square, then you really want to add them that way because then you're accounting for your fee. Here,
yeah,
this way, if adding, you're just adding your net payout.
exactly. So this is the part that makes these two payment methods so hard is that
Yep.
because the source of the final destination, if this was an airplane ride, your final destination is your bank account, and that bank is going to be connected to your bank feed, and it's going to say as much as it can from the bank, from the bank's perspective, which it received in this case $311.48 on this day. And the bank detail will give you a little bit of information there, right? It was Square. Great. Okay, I know it's I know it came in from Square. That's about all this tells
Yeah.
me.
There's not enough
um,
information there to post that to sales.
right. But as we saw, oops, oh, there we go. Okay. That magnifying thing is a little bit challenging. As we saw though from here, that deposit was actually a lot. There's a lot more to that than
Yep.
$311.48. There were two things that were sold here, and then one other thing that was they took a donation, right? So that is a lot more story
Yep.
to the business, to the reports, to everything else than just the bottom line of
Yeah.
$311.48. So again, when I add it, now that story's been told, and then in the bank, it looks for the dollar amount match, and it finds it, and there it is, right? So then I can just match to it.
Yeah, and
Ta-da!
that's why I usually like, a lot of people, and trust me, like I've added so much nonsense and undid that this is how I know. Not because I just read some guide. No, I
Mhm.
did it and undid, did it and undid, did it and undid a zillion times to now I can look at it and know exactly how it is. But in the spirit of simplifying, one thing that I like to say is just don't add any revenue out of the bank feed. Because technically, you could with PayPal, you're getting enough to tell the story, but I prefer to have to sort of keep it consistent instead of,
Yeah.
well, do it for the bank feed this with this one thing. Don't do it from the bank feed with this one thing. Here and there and there and there. And so it's always some exception to the rule in the event of, because it's a lot to know. I usually say, generally speaking, just set yourself up for that match. That way, when it comes through the bank feed, you can go ahead and see that match there. And that brings me to my next question for you, which is, doesn't the app transactions for Square auto post, or do you have to add?
I think that's a preference. Um, let's see here. Let's take a look at the settings here.
Because
Uh,
if I had a choice, once the mapping is set up and it's correct, and I know it is because I've verified it and looked at all the things, I wanted auto posting. Because again, I want that on the books. So then what comes through the bank feed
mhm.
will match. So there's no confusion.
Yeah, I don't see any. Let me share my screen again. I don't see any setting that tells it to auto post.
Yeah, see, that's one thing I don't love about those app transactions is it won't auto post. And whereas something like We Integrate or Cinder or Bookkeep, if Bookkeep is only doing journal entries, but without, all these p- uh, connectors out there, the one thing that I love about them is it's auto post every day.
Yeah,
And so I don't have to worry about it. That just takes that off our plate.
yeah. Because then it sets up the match.
Yeah.
Once you've done your due diligence of mapping. Now, in this particular company's case, because of the variances, we want to make sure that each one is posting to the right item from Square, so that we don't have to do inventory adjustments. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
will
So
just
you
use.
want to look at it and review it
So we
and
we want to
before you.
review it
Yeah.
before it posts.
Yeah.
Um, Now that I've done that, I need to probably pull it back out
But yeah, I
of
mean
this
that's a
one.
really really good point. And I also like to do that in sometimes in the connector. I like to review it before it posts and sends over, and it's really when you start using one or more, or you're on many channels, you're using a POS system and you're invoicing from QuickBooks too, and you've got all these complexities going on, then you really don't want to have all these exceptions to rules. It's really like I really just like to have things auto posting and have as much as I can matching in the bank feed, because it can be really really confusing. So
Right.
you add on another one, it's more complex. So I understand why people might want to shy away from them, but it is really really it's really important to use some of them for different reasons. For Square, I now, if I don't have cash on me and there's a pop-up food truck, now I can order tacos. I love Square. So that's incredible for all of these mom and pop, pop-ups,
Mhm.
whatever. They can now, collect the credit card folks that never carry cash. Great. You don't want to miss out on that. And now also, let's say you have an e-com platform and you want to use PayPal as a way to collect payment. um, you've got these people that are already logged in and have their passwords saved in their browser with PayPal. So they
Mhm.
can instant buy without even having to move it to the cart. They can like buy now with PayPal because they're already logged in. So you can get those
Right.
like impulse shoppers. So it's really like when you really start to think a little bit more about it, you really I now that I know more about it, and am happy to help anybody else that might have other questions like beyond this. I really tell my clients, if you're not using PayPal because it might be confusing to you, like let's get you using it because it's real. You don't want to miss out on that.
Right. Because to your point, it you don't want to they don't want to miss out on a sale because they don't offer a way to get paid. Right. Like,
Yeah,
it really boggles my mind, right? Like when you go to a business and they're like cash only.
yeah.
What?
Or check
Right?
only again. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing this kitchen remodel, and the guy's like, "Do you want to drive me a check 45 minutes out of your way?" I'm like, "Are you out of your mind?" Like that process is just antiquated. So that's why I love the fact that now PayPal is embedded in the invoice, and there's more
Mhm.
creative ways to get paid, and for field services now there's a lot of different ways because again, like those processes were too old fashioned, and you got to collect that money.
Right. So this hopefully answered more questions than it causes, but this is definitely one of those things that could be a tip of the iceberg for a convoluted QuickBooks setup, especially if they're using multiple sales channels and they're doing multiple things with their PayPal. It just if if you see these things, it's more of a let's put a pin in that and ask more questions to really get an understanding as to what they use that for
Yeah.
and what they need to do with that. Because if they're only you know accepting it as payment, that's one thing. But if they're using it in multiple sales channels and paying for things for the business out of the same, PayPal account, or Square's got, a business loan or something like that on top of that. It's more of you want to make sure that those questions are answered before taking on a new client and going, okay. Um,
Yeah. Or knowing to charge a little bit more for that
right.
extra work because if they're purchasing through PayPal and you're using some kind of external connector, all the ones that I'm aware of do not have an ability to separate the expenses out into different expense GLs. It's one. It's
Yeah.
You got to hit one thing and then you have to go in and split it. So, do you want to create more work for yourself? So, I usually now at this point I usually strongly encourage if you're using PayPal, only use it for money in. Like please don't use it for money out. Use a business credit card, get those points, do whatever you need to do, but yeah, it and honestly like
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
going to be
it's like shopping for business supplies on Amazon, right? Because you
yeah,
if you relying again on the bank feed, all it's going to say is Amazon $25, Amazon
yeah.
$462. What was it for, right? Like,
Could be anything. And
yeah,
every bookkeeper managing bank feeds knows exactly what you're talking about with Amazon. Everybody knows that. It's
yeah,
hard. And so, but one thing that we talked about is I'm definitely going to do some PayPal tutorials and things like that in School of Bookkeeping where I can help show how to reconcile and the clearing accounts and things like that because I really enjoy doing that. It's for me, it's fun. And honestly,
well,
like
maybe we'll put you on the spot next week and give us a high level. How do you reconcile a
yeah,
PayPal
and
account?
and and honestly, like I promise, even like for folks like Jeff, it just seems more confusing than it is. Once you're pointed in the right direction and you have your fundamental steps of what to do, absolutely you can do it. And it's I like to sort of turn that light on for people and then they're like, "Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I can do that."
All right. Well, we'll see you next time on the workshop. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope everybody has a great week.